San Francisco 49ers GM John Lynch is the man with the plan. What is that plan? Is there something big on the horizon as we head toward the 2025 NFL Draft? Coming at you right now on this edition of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. We appreciate you. And let us know that you came by. Hit the thumbs up. I know a lot of you already jumping in the live chat with us as we do kind of like the end of the week with a little off-season Q&A. A lot going on with the 49ers and some hand-wringing. And John Lynch speaking about what that plan might be for the 49ers. And I have some ideas. Croc, I'm interested to hear what your ideas are about what that plan is for the San Francisco 49ers in the draft and maybe a little bit more than just the draft potentially between now and, week one. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control. It's all about control of your finances with Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch and use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So, Croc, let's go to the exact quote. Let's start here with John Lynch. And he spoke with Matt Barrows, and he was at the Stanford Pro Day. And, it's the first time he's had a chance to speak since we heard him talking about the cash stuff. And then we saw the free agency period and a lot of people leaving the 49ers and not many other than some reserve players coming back into the San Francisco 49ers organization on the player side of things. And so John Lynch said, per Matt Barrows, about all of the players who have left and what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers roster this offseason. He admitted it was not easy. It has not been easy to watch so many valuable contributors go, talking about Dre Greenlaw, Deebo Samuel, Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, and so many more. But he said, quote, "We've got this thing called the draft, and we've got a lot of picks." But he also said something a little more interesting. He didn't just leave it at that. Again, much like when he spoke about the Brandon Aiyuk question, he just didn't leave it as, people call about good players. He expanded on that. And beyond the draft, he said, quote, "And I think the thing the fans should know is we have a plan, and we're going to execute that plan, and we're excited about the opportunity." Does that sound to you like a guy who's going to sit at 11, draft a player, sit at 43, draft the player, 75, 100, 113, 138, 147, 160, 222, something like that? I don't know. They got 11 draft picks, right? Is he just going to sit there and draft some guys and that's it? Call it an offseason? Or do you think he's kind of intimating that there might be a little something more under the surface and to expect maybe something big beyond just drafting some guys in April?
They've been extremely aggressive at pretty much any opportunity that they have. So whether it's moving up to pick, number 3 overall, or other times they trade up to get Brandon Aiyuk, right? Traded up because they wanted to get Dante Pettis. Traded up because they had to have CJ Beathard so bad, Okay, traded to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Traded to get Christian McCaffrey, traded to get Emmanuel Sanders. There have been a lot of opportunities for them. Traded to get Trent Williams. And that was one where, we didn't really foresee that coming. And all of a sudden, Trent Williams ended up being a 49er. They've been very aggressive. Now, what the plan is, or do they always stick to the plan? That's a different question right there. But as far as him being aggressive in this draft to potentially draft a player that they identify as a 49er, maybe have that gold sticker or gold helmet for that player, I would not all be surprised right now. Not at all. If you told me, if we woke up tomorrow and the 49ers traded up to pick 6 because there's somebody they really like and they feel like he'll be in that range, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a very 49er thing to do. And I mean that in a good way.
I mean, I could see it going either way. I could see them going up to get a player they think is a blue chipper that they don't think they'll get at 11. I could see them dropping back and collecting more picks, maybe even some future picks, and try to the slow build process and make sure that they're set with draft picks as they go forward and build this thing and try to build a foundation that way, a la Bill Walsh. And I'm glad you brought it up. And by the way, Croc, March 20th, as we record this episode, on Thursday evening. Shout out to my folks who'll be listening to this on their way to work on Friday morning. Happy anniversary week of the 49ers trading up to pick number 3 in the 2021 NFL draft. It happened this week. March 26th is when it happened. And so, look, the 49ers, we know John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan can get together and come up with a plan and execute it. That doesn't mean it's a great plan. And it could be something huge. And they have been aggressive. And so I wonder, I just feel like they can't just sit around and draft some players and call it a day, pat each other on the back, right? A little chest bump, like what's the name of the Lions GM? Brad Holmes. Remember when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it flashed to the war room, and he's giving chest bumps, and they're so jacked up, and I'm like, man, you guys just drafted a running back in the first round, and you're chest bumping in the war room. Jahmyr Gibbs, pretty darn good player, by the way, but guess what?
Darn good.
Didn't help them get where they needed to go this last season, because they needed, you know what they need? They need some other players like on the defensive line. That's why you don't draft a running back in the first round. So there's I don't want to get sidetracked here at the running back thing, but everyone like,
it's not like Montgomery was bad all year,
right? Oh, right. What a great pick! The running back was good. Yeah, of course the running back is good. What about the things that really matter for your football team, right? And Jahmyr Gibbs is so good that guess what? You're like, oh man, we need David Montgomery to actually be the starter. We need another running back. We can't pound him into the ground because we have to limit his touches so he doesn't get hurt. Christian McCaffrey, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. Here's the most money of any running back in the league too. Better limit his carries because guess what? He's hurt. Nobody saw that coming, Croc. The running back got hurt that you gave the ball to 400 times. All right, no more about running backs.
I will say one thing that did stick out to me in the article and reading the quote was John Lynch talking about 49ers going all in last year. And when they went all in and it didn't work out, it's like, okay, well, now we got to reset the whole thing. And they try to throw out that word reset.
Reset.
To me, it sounds a whole lot like a rebuild, not even a retool. It's like, because it's like, hey, let's go get Leonard Floyd. Let's go get some of these other guys. And we end up signing Hargraves, and we got these guys on big contracts. And then all of a sudden you're getting rid of all of these guys. And then you're also not retaining guys like Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, guys who were pivotal pieces in some of these big runs that the 49ers have had. So you start missing a lot of those guys. Everybody, they want to call it a retool, but when you hear them say, man, we went all in, it didn't work, a lot of injuries. All right, let's clean this whole thing out. It sounds like a rebuild, and I don't think most people want to hear that.
You know what reset means to me? My 6-year-old son, Leo, we've been playing some video games together lately. I busted out my old NES. It's not actually an old NES, it's like a new remade tiny version of an NES. But we play like, Super Mario Brothers and all the classics. And Contra was a fun game I liked. Got him playing some Contra. He enjoyed that. You press reset on the Nintendo, you don't just keep going. You started level 1.
You wipe everything out. Right?
You started level 1. That's a reset, right? So again, like, I don't know, man. The last time they had a big plan in the offseason, it was weird. And they ended up lighting 3 first-round picks on fire to go get Trey Lance. So I hope this plan works out better than that plan did, and they can talk themselves into some things. And so I'm fascinated to see what this plan is. I think it's probably more to do with maybe potentially trading to someone like Brandon Aiyuk, who's got that roster bonus March 1st coming up. Could it be a draft day trade? Could they trade for maybe a player that's not expensive, that's still on a rookie contract somewhere? Could that be a trade that they do and spend one of their, middle round picks or something on a guy and bring him in and add a starter that way that's not expensive? Because we know it's not going to be cash. It's not going to be Trey Hendrickson. I already know it's going to show up in the chat. It's not going to be Trey Hendrickson if they're worried about cash, right? It's not like they're going to throw money at a different free agent after getting rid of all these free agents. So what is the plan beyond just the draft? Is there something else next? Here we go.
The new in the chat has a plan, and he says he thinks it's tank for the year and go get fast Peyton Manning.
Archibald Manning.
That's what we call Arch Manning fast Peyton Manning.
Fast Peyton Manning, dude. And you know what? Even if he's fast Eli Manning is the first pick in the draft and won a couple Super Bowls. So fast Eli would not even be that bad. But if he's fast Peyton Manning, it's worth it. A lot of people. So here's what's funny. I put that out there on Twitter talking about Arch Manning and all of the Texas fans. And look, of course, if you're a Texas fan, you hope this is the case. And I don't know if it's reality or not. But all the Texans fans were like, or Texas University of Texas fans were like, nope, Arch Manning's staying in school, maybe even for 2 more years, or 3 more years. I mean, because he's a redshirt sophomore coming up this year, had a redshirt season. He's like, nope, Arch is gonna stay. He doesn't want to come out after 1 year as a starter. He's gonna be back for 2 years, and he might play all the way through his senior year before he enters the NFL draft. I already see your body language and what you think.
That sounds like the 49er fans that are saying, nah, Brock Purdy doesn't seem like the type of guy that wants top dollar.
He's going to take.
Bro, I'm going to get every dollar I can get. And if I'm fast Peyton Manning and I'm going to be the number 1 overall pick, hey, go Horns or whatever they say, but I am out of here. So you guys, all you Longhorn fans who are listening right now, y'all better capitalize on having Manning this year and hope you win something, because next season he's out of there.
If he has an awesome year, and especially if there's a good organization, like I could see if the Cleveland Browns have the number 1 pick, be like, yeah, maybe I'll go back 1 more year. So I don't think I want to go through that. But we saw what Eli did, and Eli didn't care who had the number 1 pick. He got himself to New York. So, but if the 49ers are sitting there with the number 1 pick, Arch Manning might say, hey, you know what? I might want to go play for Coach Kyle Shanahan. If Coach Shanahan has a job, if they have the number 1 overall pick too, because that's the thing. And this is not an organization that's going to tank. Not an organization that's going to tank. I think a different team's probably going to have the opportunity for old fast Peyton Manning in whatever draft he decides to come out. All right, let's talk more about the 49ers draft, what the plan is, and kind of ear to the ground of what's going on with the NFL draft. I got an idea of what a kind of a fun NFL draft could be for the San Francisco 49ers. Croc, we'll get into that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or maybe a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. And posting your job is free and simple. And within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. All you got to do is visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all that money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, maybe just that extra trip to the coffee shop every single day? Stuff adds up and it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And how about this? Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half your first year off. You're muted, Croc.
Question right here from Ryu. Ryu Kid. Okay, Street Fighter. Reference there. I got that.
Video games, yeah.
There we go. He says, if we get the number 1 pick, would Kyle be the coach? Now, listen, I think the world of the 49ers coaches, and I just think they're just too good to have the number 1 overall pick, aside from just trading everything up to number 1, which I don't see them doing anything like that again. Matter of fact, I don't even think Jet York will let them. But hypothetically speaking, in this crazy world, if the 49ers just lose a bunch of games and they do end up with the number 1 overall pick, I don't see any way possible that Kyle Shanahan, coming off of a 6-win season, and then you have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
The only way he'll still be here is if they paid Brock Purdy a ton of money, and maybe he got hurt early on. Let me knock on wood here. All right, but he got hurt, and then like you're just really bad because of that.
Yeah,
That's
like
the only way I could see them
it's
even
like
having a pick that high. But
it's like
if you have Brock and he plays the whole year, and you're still picking number one overall, I don't know who we should be more worried about, Kyle or Brock, but they might both be going after that.
Yeah. Well, imagine if Brock plays and is bad and Jed shelled out the money. Like, that's the ultimate disaster. I don't think it would happen necessarily that way, but man, Brock was just healthy all year for a 6-win team, right? So you can't do that again for sure. And you certainly can't get the number 1 pick in the draft unless, Brock does get hurt and it's a Spurs, Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan situation, right? And you end up with the first pick that way. But even then, it would be probably a rough situation because what do you do with the number 1 overall pick? And I mean, you think back to the way the 49ers would do it is if they ended up in the same, this needed to be a draft where there was that opportunity to do something crazy and it was the right path to do it. Because if in 2021, the Dolphins just needed to lose like one more game. If the Dolphins had the first pick, the Niners would have Trevor Lawrence right now instead of the Trey Lance trade, right? Because they had drafted Tua. And unless they were going to still draft Trevor Lawrence potentially after drafting Tua the year before. But that's why the Dolphins were the perfect team for the 49ers to trade with. If they would end up with the top pick, would the Niners have been number 1 in the draft that year? Because they were clearly willing to give up more than just about anybody else was. Was anybody else going to throw down 3 first-round picks? Probably not. And so, that's probably the situation that it would take. And, it would have to get ugly with Brock Purdy, then not sign him. Then the 49ers are bad. And then he plays out the contract. And then now you need a quarterback. That would probably be the only way to do it. And that would probably be a situation where, it's probably not John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan do it. But man, if you can win only 6 games with a healthy quarterback, what would happen if you had a really bad quarterback situation too for a year? It's not like right now on paper, they're a more talented team than they were last year with all the players leaving. What do you think? What is a team? What is Brandon Aiyuk's trade value? Let's say the 49ers are serious about trading Brandon Aiyuk and they don't want to pay that roster bonus that's coming up on March or April 1st. And they can't get him to say, hey, Brandon, look, we're mad at each other. You still want to go somewhere else? Look, let's restructure your contract so that roster bonus is due in May 1st instead of April 1st, and we can go through the draft and maybe trade you on draft day. If he gets traded before March 1st, what does the team offer? Because it was a 2nd and a 5th from the Steelers, right? And it was at least a 2nd round pick, and the New England Patriots were interested. I don't think the Patriots would give up their 2nd round pick now, even though it'd actually be less total money that they would end up giving Brandon Aiyuk. So they would save some money, but he's coming off the ACL. I've heard some day 3 picks, but the Niners aren't going to trade Brandon Aiyuk and get a 4th back or a couple of 6th round picks. They wouldn't do that, would they? They're too competitive to lose the contract and then lose the trade after that. They wouldn't do that. What would you get from, say, the Patriots?
Yeah, so there are a lot of people asking about, the whole Brandon Aiyuk thing and, 49ers, they won't trade him. Yeah, I don't think the 49ers will trade him, but not because of what other people think. We just love Brandon Aiyuk so much. No, they're just going to, what they would receive in a trade for Brandon Aiyuk today is just not going to be worth it for them to trade him. The money that they would eat and then getting rid of him, and it's okay, well, we're going to replace him with a 4th round pick. I think it would be a 4th round. What would you give up? I'm not giving up. It's look, you just gave this dude $30 million a year. We're going to be on the hook for a lot of this money and bonuses and all these other crazy things. He's coming off of a torn ACL, and not just an ACL, something else as well, I think MCL
there's a meniscus involved, maybe, or something like that,
or meniscus. So it's what is this recovery going to look like? What is he going to look like when he comes back from this recovery? Talk about plans, right? We started off talking about this on this episode, talking about a plan. They botched that plan, and I don't even know if there was a plan. But Eric Crocker tried to give them the plan, and that plan was: don't sign a guy to a massive contract when you don't plan on using him that way. It's the same thing with there's people talking about 49ers, like, get rid of Brandon Aiyuk, draft a receiver at 11. No, you don't draft a receiver at 11 if you're 49ers, because you never plan to use that guy the way that 11 overall picks are used. Like, when I look at Brandon Aiyuk in his all-pro season, he had one game with 10 plus targets. And it wasn't just 10 plus, it was 10. He had one game with 10 targets in his all-pro season where he caught 75 passes. All right. I always knew that. I don't know if he's going to repeat this performance. So if you are going to get anything for him, you better do it right now, because the 49ers don't care to really go above and beyond to get the ball in his hands. You look at Malik Neighbors, right, who was drafted top 10. Malik Neighbors had like 10 games of double-digit targets compared to, a year ago, Brandon Aiyuk won. So that's why it's like, you botched your plan when you paid him all that money to never utilize. And I talked a lot about the utilization of him in the offseason. People are like, Croc, you keep talking about that. Yeah, because it's big. And I don't think they really want to pay him this amount of money. And then they paid it. And now a year later, after he tears his ACL, they have Byron Morris, and your GM is on the podium talking about, hey, everybody's available. Like, what? So what's the plan? Yeah. So, right. Yeah, no, that's a tough one. What is his trade value right now? It was good a year ago. Even then, now you're supposed to trade him this time of the year, right now, and you would have had suitors before the draft,
right?
And try to have a deal done at the combine. You'd have got the most for him. You probably could have got a first-round pick if you would have did it then. But instead, you waited. It got weird. In the 12th hour, you want to try to trade him. So I don't know. Their plans for not just him, but a lot of that stuff, it's just bad. And the value has just continued to go down for Brandon Aiyuk. I think they get a fourth for him right now.
Yeah. So, when John Lynch talks about a plan, we'll see. They've come up with some doozy plans. Sometimes great, sometimes not as good. And they've built a pretty darn good team altogether. But, man, there's some fifth-round picks doing some really heavy lifting in that as well. And the 49ers have a couple of fifth-round picks now in the NFL draft. Let's talk NFL draft next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, Croc.
Real quick, Peacock.
Yeah.
Double B Studio says, and it's worse because they pay Brandon Aiyuk like a number one receiver. And the thing is, like, I always felt like, man, you put him somewhere else, he would be more beneficial to that team because they would just do more with him. The 49ers paid him like they're going to use him like that. And they just, I don't even think Kyle ever intended to do that.
And I get Kyle wanting the best receivers on his team because it'll help his passing game. The 49ers in Kyle Shanahan just doesn't run a high volume passing game. So is that where you should sink all your money?
Is it worth it for the Bengals to pay Jamar Chase $40 million a year and T. Higgins $28.5 million a year? Yes, because he's going to throw the hell out the ball.
He's going to have to as well, man. Like, that's the only path they have to win right now because they're not going to stop anybody. They got to score 45 points a game. And he'll chuck it. Yeah. So, Croc, I find this fascinating. Some really plugged in NFL draft folks, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, many others. They have some guys that have been some of our favorites on tape, guys that we have in the top 10 of our prospects for the 49ers, falling deep into the first round, sometimes out of the first round altogether. Talking Walter Nolan, you'd be cool with him at pick 11, right? Talent-wise, the tape. He's one of my favorite picks for the 49ers at 11, right? Based on the tape. Seems to be falling in these mock drafts and these insiders, these plugged in people that are talking to teams and talking to scouts. Luther Burden, speaking of players that Kyle Shanahan could have a crush on in this draft, if they were to trade Brandon Aiyuk pre-draft, Luther Burden, I think, would be one of Kyle Shanahan's draft crushes at wide receiver. He wasn't in the first round of Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. He's sliding in some of these mocks, which is shocking. And we've got him like right there after Walter Nolan as far as some of our tape grades on the prospects on our Locked On 49ers big board. So could the 49ers potentially, could part of that plan be take a big advantage of that rather than trading up in the draft? What if the 49ers could trade down into the 20s, get a whole bunch of extra draft picks and draft, say, Walter Nolan or Luther Burden? And then from 43, depending on what those picks are, move back up towards the end of the first round and get the other one, Luther Burden. Could you come out of this draft with Luther Burden and Walter Nolan, right? Could you come out of the draft with maybe one of the big time defensive backs that's fallen, one of the safeties that's fallen in the draft? Could you maneuver yourself around where you kind of go down first and then you're able to go up and really attack that area of the NFL draft? I feel like that would be one of the strategies I'd go about right now. And maybe I'll do a mock draft that way this weekend and present it on Monday, because I think it would be a really fun way for the 49ers to add a ton of value. And I think this draft is going to be interesting because I feel like more than most years, teams are going to be all over the place with how they value these players, because I think it's really close grades across the board. So it's going to be eye of the beholder on a lot of these things. Now, and here's the other thing, and I already see it in the chat right now. Nolan to the Eagles. Howie would be happy again. That's exactly it. I don't want Chris Jones part 2. Remember when Chris Jones? He was a top 15 talent. Clearly he was a top 15 talent, but everybody knew he was the talented guy in the draft, whatever year that was that Chris Jones came out, but he slid because there was maybe some character stuff, maybe some immaturity stuff. And he slid to who? Andy Reid, who does not care about the character stuff and the off-field stuff. And dude's got Lombardis, right? He does not care about that stuff. And he's sitting there.
Did you remember Chris Jones' 40-yard dash?
Yeah. I do.
I didn't know that was Chris Jones until I just saw a video the other day, and I'm like, that was Chris Jones?
Yeah. So if those folks that don't know what we're talking about, feel free. It might not be safe for work. Go.
Just Google. Chris
Jones 40s.
Chris Jones 40-yard dash at the combine.
Yeah. Phenomenal stuff. But Andy Reid would be like, thank you very much, and take one of those guys, right? Howie Roseman, how perfect of a replacement for Milton Williams, who they lost in free agency, would Walter Nolan be to him at pick 32, right? And so you don't want the rich to get richer there. So move up and draft Walter Nolan. And the 49ers have already done a trade with the Minnesota Vikings, by the way, at pick 24. If they wanted to go up, the Vikings only have 4 picks in this draft. They could be a team in front of all those playoff teams that might want to move down in the draft. So I think attacking upwards from 43 would be a possibility to draft one of those guys that's sliding down the board in round 1 that the Niners have a clean first round grade on. And Luther Burden, I think about him not being in the first round. I mean, come on. Ricky Pearsall went 31. You tell me Luther Burden isn't a better prospect than Ricky Pearsall? Pearsall's fine, right? But Luther Burden is a beast. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. There's some wild stuff I'm seeing with the draft, but it's also lying season. So who knows who's telling the truth about some of these things. We'll find out in April. But if some of these guys start to fall, man, you can make out like a bandit, I think, potentially. Although there's, if a guy's got bad character, maybe you should stay away too. So, but yeah, I just don't want to see those guys fall to the Eagles and the Chiefs.
John Lynch talked about having a plan, and the big part of your plan, like, you better get this right, especially if you start kind of moving around a whole lot, especially if you move back and you pass up on some guys that end up being big time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe one of your guys is good and the other guy just doesn't last as long. One of the guys, like, let's say you trade back into the first round, man, you gotta talk about having a plan, because I think of even the 2020 or 2021 draft, or whatever year that was, with Aiyuk and those guys.
And Kinlaw,
they did trade back. They drafted Kinlaw. Now, again, their whole plan, I thought the obvious thing to do was, move Eric Armstead to 3-tech. Makes a whole lot of sense, right? They're like, nope, we're going to draft Javon Kinlaw, but we're going to trade back a spot when we could have had Tristan Wirfs. But maybe they just, hey, we got a guy in our head. We want Trent Williams. All right, whatever. But you knew you wanted a receiver. My wide receiver 1 from that class was CeeDee Lamb. but I also loved Justin Jefferson. And I did a mock. I traded back to pick 18, drafted Justin Jefferson. I wish the 49ers would have potentially done that, right? And then maybe you get a DB, at the end of the first round or whatever. But the biggest thing is you don't want to pass up big time talent by trading back. I'm all for it. Now, the one thing about this draft is what we're hearing a lot of. There's some people that have 10 first round guys, right? Obviously, there's 32 picks, but they're like, oh, we only got first round grades on 10 of these guys. So how do you ensure that you get one of those 10 guys? Well, there's probably going to be a couple quarterbacks that potentially go in the top 10. We'll see how that whole thing shakes out. I would assume there's some people that don't have first round grades on them. So we're talking, so that should push some talent down a little bit. But even then, trading up to about, pick 8 or so should land you a guy that is a legit first round prospect. And I would probably go that route as opposed to trading back and getting a guy that's it's kind of maybe a high second round guy. Then now you're kind of loading up on those type of guys, and you'll see. I don't know. If it's Walter Nolan, I guess I really liked him, but
yeah,
if you tell me I have a chance to get Graham, the kid out of Michigan,
right,
I would take him over Walter Nolan, and I like Walter Nolan a lot.
And I feel like that Carolina pick at 8 is a really key one because the 49ers could get up there and it wouldn't be super expensive. Like, could they get up there with pick 100, their late third rounder? They would for sure be able to, I think, get to number 8 or so with the number 75 if they want to go that high. It's a little pricey to go up, because you think you should be able to get a really good player at 75 to go up a few spots to secure your guy. If Mason Graham is indeed their guy, I can definitely see that. And it's in their DNA, Croc, because you just mentioned it. Like, they've traded down twice in the first round. Both times were exactly one pick. Like, I can't think of a time, even later in the draft, that they've moved down a lot. They generally go up when they trade. Like, they're aggressive in that way. It's in their DNA. So I would expect the 49ers make probably fewer than 11 picks, more than I would expect them to make more than 11 picks. Thanks, everybody, for making
I think anytime any team that goes into a draft with 11 picks, you're not using all 11.
Yeah,
you're not drafting 11 players.
The 49ers have 11 open spots right now too, though, because they've done a lot of work with losing players this offseason in the free agency period and trading away Deebo Samuel. So they could fit 11 players in a lot easier than they could have in the last 4 or 5 years for sure. So they could do more. And you could add future picks too. But, the 49ers haven't been, too worried about future drafts throughout this, which is kind of what got them here when they had to kind of reset. So we'll see what that reset looks like. We'll see what the plan looks like. Are they cooking up something big like they did almost exactly, was that 4 years ago? It feels like 10 years ago. 4 years ago in 2021 when they traded up. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Welcome if you are brand new. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I back next time right here. Locked On 49ers.